Have you ever noticed that we can't seem to agree on anything anymore? Not just politics, but reality itself. We argue about vaccines, and we argue about elections and climate and history and even what words mean. Every fact seems to have a counterfact. Every source has a rival source. And behind it all, there's this kind of low-level hum of exhaustion. This quiet fear that maybe truth itself has become untrustworthy. This is what philosophers call the collapse of epistemic trust, the breakdown of our shared ability to tell what's true and who to believe. And it may be the most dangerous crisis in American life today. The word epistemic simply means having to do with knowledge. So epistemic trust is the trust we place in others to tell us the truth. Almost everything you know, you learned from someone else. You didn't personally verify the boiling point of water or measure the Earth's circumference or test whether seatbelts save lives. You trusted teachers, researchers, journalists, institutions, built to test claims so you wouldn't have to. That's how civilization works. It's a massive web of delegated knowing. Each of us stands on the shoulders of thousands of unseen experts. But what happens when that trust erodes? Trust doesn't collapse all at once. It cracks slowly. First, institutions failed us. Watergate taught Americans that leaders lie. Tobacco companies hid science. Financial firms gambled away retirement savings. Church scandals shattered moral credibility. Each betrayal chipped away at our willingness to believe. Then came the internet, and with it, the illusion that all voices are equal. A scientist and a conspiracy theorist now speak from the same screen and with the same confidence and the same lighting and often the same number of followers. Add to that the social media algorithms that reward outrage instead of truth. And we begin to drown in information while starving for knowledge. Today, anyone can say anything and someone will believe it because we no longer agree on who deserves to be believed. The collapse of epistemic trust isn't just intellectual, it's emotional. When people lose faith in experts, it's often not because they love ignorance, but because they feel betrayed. They remember the time a doctor brushed them off, or a journalist mocked their concerns, or a politician smiled while lying straight to their face. Once trust breaks, people don't stop believing. They just start believing different people. They trade experts for influencers. They trade institutions for tribes and evidence for emotion. Because it feels safer to trust those who sound like us rather than those who talk down to us. Philosophers have wrestled with this problem for centuries. David Hume said we can't verify everything ourselves, so we have to rely on others. But we also have to judge who's reliable. That's the heart of epistemic trust, deciding whose word counts as knowledge. Now, in a healthy society, that judgment is shared. We agree that scientists test evidence, that journalists investigate, that teachers educate. But once those agreements fall apart, truth itself becomes a matter of loyalty. People don't ask, is it true? They ask, is it ours? Truth becomes tribal. You can feel this collapse in everyday life. Try having a calm conversation about politics or health policy and watch how quickly people retreat into slogans. Every correction feels like an attack. Every source you cite gets dismissed as bias. It's exhausting and isolating. It creates what psychologists call epistemic loneliness. the feeling that you're the only one sane left, surrounded by madness. But here's the paradox. Everyone feels the same way on every side. We've built a nation of lonely knowers, each convinced the others are deluded. When epistemic trust collapses, society itself begins to shake. Science loses its authority. Democracy loses its foundation. Public health measures fail, and propaganda, both foreign and domestic, fills the vacuum. Because if no one knows what's true, the loudest voice wins. And that's how freedom dies, not with censorship, but with confusion. We often say we're in a post-truth era. But that's not quite right. Truth hasn't disappeared. It's just been dethroned. We've replaced it with trust and feelings. If something feels right, if it flatters my side, my faith, or my fears, it must be true. If it challenges me, it must be fake. That's not reasoning, that's identity protection. It's emotional armor disguised as conviction. Philosopher Alasdair MacIntyre warned that in a culture where we no longer share a common idea of what it means to live a good life, and with that, a common moral framework, our moral arguments tend to break down. They often turn into nothing more than expressions of personal will or preference, which he calls motivism, because there's no longer a shared basis for reasoned discussions. And sadly, that's exactly where we are today. So, how do we rebuild epistemic trust? Well, it won't happen through fact-checking alone. It starts with character, the intellectual virtues that keep society sane. First, humility. Admit what we don't know. Confidence without competence is poison. Say I might be wrong and mean it. Second is transparency. Institutions must show how knowledge is made. Don't just give answers, show the reasoning. People trust honesty about uncertainty more than false certainty. Third, curiosity. Ask why someone believes something different instead of labeling them stupid. Every belief, even false ones, often grow out of real-life experiences. Fourth, responsibility. If you share something online, you're acting as a node in humanity's knowledge network. I would propose that as sacred work, and so we need to be careful with it. And finally, community. Trust can't be rebuilt in isolation. It grows through dialogue, through seeing each other's good faith, through remembering that we are partners in the search for truth, not enemies in a war of lies. Sometimes I think about how much of my own life depends on trust I didn't earn. I trust pilots to land planes I fly in. I trust surgeons to keep my heart beating. I trust the engineers who built the bridge I cross. And yet, when it comes to information, to what we believe about the world, we've turned that trust into suspicion. We forget that behind every honest expert is a human being doing their best to seek truth, just like you and me. Rebuilding epistemic trust isn't about going back to blind faith in authority. It's about recovering wise trust, discerning, humble, evidence-based faith in people who've earned credibility. We can't rebuild America's faith in truth overnight, but each of us can become a trustworthy knower, humble, honest, and committed to understanding before judging. Because the moment we stop believing that truth can be known is the moment we stop being free. Truth matters, so trust wisely. If you found this helpful, please hit like and subscribe. And as always, keep asking good questions.